All right, guys. The last topic we're going to cover this year is quadratic formula, and it's a way to solve these quadratic equations like this. If we had like 3x squared plus 4x plus 6 equals 0, it's a way to solve that, to figure out what x has to be. All right, and I know I said that factoring these was the easiest way. This is probably not an easy one to factor, but it might be factorable, I don't know, but some of them aren't factorable, and so that's where you have to have other methods, and this is one of those other methods. This works for every quadratic that you could come up with. It'd work for this one here. Now there would be some decimals maybe, etc., but you can find the solution every time. And remember, what we're finding is the points where the parabola crosses. Each one of these is a parabola, okay? And so what we're finding is like, all right, well, here and here are the solutions, okay? And that's what this formula will tell us, where on this x-axis those points are. And normally we're going to get two answers, okay? Not always. There'd be two answers. There could be one answer, or there could be zero answers, okay? And we'll talk about what that looks like in a minute here. And on any quadratic, not just using this formula, but on any of them, okay? There could be those numbers of answers. And this is why, because sometimes the parabola will be like this, and it never crosses this axis. Sometimes the parabola looks like this, where the vertex is on there. So that'd be one answer. And then obviously this parabola has two answers, okay? And so we have one answer here, two answers in this situation, and no answers here. Or, maybe our parabola looks like this here, and it would never cross that x-axis, okay? And so that's what's going on. And we don't even know what the parabola looks like necessarily. I mean, this one we know it's going to be pretty steep because it's got a 3. We know it's going to go up because it's positive. But other than that, we don't really know where it is without graphing it, okay? But we can find where it crosses the x-axis using this. So let's continue that. Again, these letters here, b squared, minus 4ac, and 2a, that's all these letters here. We're just plugging those in. So I'm going to rewrite the formula over here again, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. The good thing is all we're doing is plugging in numbers. So in our case, using this one right here, a is 3, b is going to be 4, and c is 6. Okay? So now we just plug stuff in. So my negative b would be a negative 4. And then I have b squared, so 4 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 6, all over. Notice I put this line all the way across. Some people think that it only goes here. It's the whole thing. And now I got 2a on the bottom, so that's 2 times 3 on the bottom. Okay? Now the first thing we do is what's underneath this radical. Okay, because that's going to tell us how many answers we have. Remember I said there could be this many answers, 2, 1, or 0. Okay, well, this is going to tell us that right away. If it's positive, if this ends up being positive, I have 2 answers. If it ends up being negative, I have 0 answers. And if it ends up being 0, I have 1 answer. That's kind of crazy, but I'll have 1 answer if this ends up being 0 underneath the radical there. Okay? I just made this up, so I don't have any idea what it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be negative to me. And so we'd have negative 4 plus or minus square root. Now, 4 squared is going to be 16. And then minus 4 times 3 times 6, that's going to be 12 times 6 is 72. So that's going to be 16 minus 72. And then the bottom is going to be 6. So 16 minus 72, though, is negative, isn't it? Now, that means I have no answers. Well, why is that? Well, can you take the square root of a negative 56? It won't work. That's why there's no answers. Okay? So if that part underneath there becomes negative, you say no solution. So in other words, it's one of those parabolas that never crosses the x-axis. Okay? But that's all we're doing. Boom, you're done. And on this one, you're done. Now, obviously, there's a little bit more work if that comes out positive. Okay, and I'll show you that on the next one here. All right, so let's go 3x squared plus 4x minus 6 this time. Okay, so now the a and the b are the same, but the c is negative, and that's going to be important because it's going to allow our bottom half to be positive. So, or our discriminant to be positive. That b squared minus 4ac is called the discriminant. That part right there is the discriminant, and that's what tells us what answers we got. Okay, so again, I got my -4, I got my plus or minus, I got my 4 squared, and then my -4 times a is 3 times c is -6. Now this time, because that's a -6, this part's going to end up being positive. Okay, and so we're going to have a positive answer. Okay, and so now if I slide this up, we're going to have -4 plus or minus, and we had 16 before. Now we're going to have plus 72 over 6, because a -4 times a -6 is going to make a positive. Okay, -4 times 3 is -12, times that -6 is positive 72. So now when we add those together, we got -4 plus or minus the square root of 88 over 6. Okay. Tina, can you bring me a calculator? I forgot to get a calculator. Stupid me. All right. So now we have to figure out the square root of 88. Okay, it's 9 something, but I don't know exactly what it is. But thank you. So if I go 88 square root, it's 9.38. Okay. So now this is why we're going to have two answers. When this is positive, we said we'd have two answers. Well, the reason we have two answers is because one's plus and one's minus. So we break that down now. We say, all right, it's -4 plus 9.38 divided by 6, and -4 minus 9.38 divided by 6. Okay? So this one here is going to be a 5.38 divided by 6, because 9 minus 4 would be 5, right? And here it's going to be -13.38 divided by 6, because they're both negative, so I add them up. So 4 and 9 makes 19. And then I just divide each of those. So 5.38 divided by 6, remember I want two decimals, is 0.89666666. So that'd be 0.90, right? And then 13.38 divided by 6 is 2.23. So this is going to be a -2.23. So in other words, our parabola, there's 1, would cross about here at 0.9, and there's 2 about there. It looks something like that. Actually, it's probably a lot steeper than that, but that's in general. But that's where it crosses, those 2 points. All right, so let's do another one of those. Let's go 2x squared minus 6x minus 1 equals 0. Okay? So we've got a is 2, b is -6, and c is -1. So x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So -b would be a positive 6, because it's already negative, right? We've got to change it. And then -6 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Now, this part is where a lot of people get confused. They trust their calculators. This number here, when I'm done with it, is always positive. This part here might be negative, but this part here, the b squared, is always going to be positive, because if I take a number times itself, it's got to be positive, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, it's never going to be negative. Some people get that mixed up and they make that negative. All right, so now we got this. We got 36. And then, so now I got my -4 times 2 times -1. That's going to be a positive 8, right? Okay, that's this part here. So now my discriminant is positive, so there's going to be two answers, right? So I got 2 times 2 is 4 for the bottom piece. All right, so now on the top here we got 6 plus or minus square root of 44 all over 4. So I need to take the square root of 44, and that's 6.63. So I got 6 plus or minus 6.63 over 4. And so now to find out what my answers are, I just add them up. So 6 plus 6.63 over 4 and 6 minus 6.63 over 4. So that's 12.63 over 4 and negative 0.63 over 4. Because 6 minus 6 would be 0, right? Okay. And so then 12.63 divided by 4 is 3.16. Remember to round to 2 decimals. And 0.63 divided by 4 is 0.16, negative 0.16. And those are my 2 solutions. Okay, and so the other option then that we haven't talked about yet is only one solution, and that's when the discriminant is 0. So let's see if I can come up with one that makes 0. All right, I got to think about this for a second. All right, let's go here. Let's go x squared minus 4x and plus 4. That's a 4 equals 0. So then A is 1, B is negative 4, and C is 4. So we got x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So then negative b would be a positive 4 because it's already negative, so I got to change it because of this guy. And then I got, again, a negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4, because c is 4 this time, and then all over 2 times 1. Okay, so this time, inside here I got 16, and then minus 16, don't I? Okay, so we got 4 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2. Well, what's the square root of 0? 0. So I don't have to plus, 4 plus 0 is going to be the same as 4 minus 0, isn't it? That's why there's only one answer. That's why there's only one answer, because it's 4 over 2, which is 2. The only answer is 2. So we know that my parabola looks like this here. We know exactly what it looks like. Okay? Because it's got a 1 here, and we know where the vertex is, and we can follow the pattern and all that stuff. But there's only one answer, because it only crosses at 2. I don't even need this one here. So when that's 0, there's one answer. Questions, let me know. All right, now sometimes they won't write it like this. They'll write it out of order or stuff on both sides. And so we just put everything on the same side. So let's say we got like x squared plus 7x equals negative 3, just for giggles, okay? So when we want to start using our quadratic formula, we got to get everything over because we don't know what c is yet. So to move the 3, I'd have to add it over, correct? So x squared plus 7x plus 3 equals 0. So now everything's on the same side, and it equals 0. And that's what we got to have. So a is 1, b is 7, c is 3. So I don't know that until I get it in the right order. I don't know what a, b, and c are until I get it in the right order. And then we just plug everything into our formula. So negative 7 plus or minus b squared would be 7 squared minus 4 times a times c, and then all over 2 times a. All right. So I got negative 7 plus or minus square root of 49. 7 squared is 49. Minus, and it's going to be minus because there's only one negative here, so it's going to be minus 12 over 2. So negative 7 plus or minus square root of 37 over 2. And so now the square root of 37 is 6.08. So I got negative 7 plus and minus 6.08 over 2. So negative 7 plus 6.08 and negative 7 minus 6.08. So this one's going to be negative 13.08 divided by 2, and then this one here is going to be negative 0.92. 917 would be 92. So if I divide that by 2, I get 0.46. And 13.08 divided by 2 is 6.54, so negative 6.54. And they're both negative that time. Sometimes they'll be both negative, sometimes they'll have one of each. Sometimes they'll both be positive, just kind of depends. Okay, but those are different things you could run into. Okay, so you just got to remember, if this guy's positive, you're going to have two answers. Okay, if it comes out, if the square root is 0, then you're going to have one answer. And if it's negative, if that guy comes out to be a negative, it's going to be no answers. Now, you got to be careful, because this number is never going to be negative. That's always going to be a positive number there. This part here is what's going to make it negative, if it's going to be negative at all. All right, let me know if you have questions.